Welcome to Democratic Television, a program of the Santa Clara County Democratic Party that brings insights, perspectives, and attitudes of our always thoughtful Democratic guests. Today we're joined by Ron Lind, a Renaissance man involved in the community in many ways, and we'll discuss those. Ron, thanks for being on Democratic Television.
Thanks, Steve. Happy to be here.
Well, I just built you up a little bit, and we have a lot of blanks to fill in. You are the president of the South Bay Labor Council. You're the president of your union, United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 5. You're on the California PERS, Public Employees Retirement System Board. You have a family. Pretty darn busy, huh?
I try to keep busy and stay organized, but yeah, I've always been involved in a lot, Steve, because it's just all important work, and you got to find time to do it, and that's kind of what I do.
Well, that's great. So let's get to knowing you a little bit. Where you from? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I'm from a definite Santa Clara County-based family. I was born in San Jose, downtown. My wife Jennifer, born in Palo Alto. My 2 kids born in Mountain View. All 4 of us went to San Jose State, so we were definitely local folks. And I always like to say I'm a little bit boring. I've had the same wife, the same house, and the same job for more than 30 years. So it kind of makes me a little bit of an outlier, I think.
Well, I don't think any of those things are boring in themselves. Where did you go to school?
Well, I went to school. I grew up in Campbell, and then went to Prospect High School, and then San Jose State.
So along the way, here you are. I didn't mention that you've been an elected official, a community college trustee. Did you have any influences going to school that made you think, when I grow up, I want to be this or I want to be that? With Cesar Chavez or President Kennedy? Well, of course, that was probably before your time.
Not quite, but well, it's interesting. I certainly was not growing up thinking I was going to be a union activist. In fact, I still don't remember to this day what kind of convinced me to apply to work as a union organizer, which is where I started with the union. I was working my way through San Jose State. I was going to be a history professor. That was my goal. I loved history. The folks you mentioned, Cesar Chavez, John Kennedy, a lot of historical figures that influenced me. And I was almost at the end. I was a senior in college at San Jose State, getting ready to start on the teaching credentials, and then the International Union was hiring union organizers, and that just sounded so interesting to me. I thought maybe I'll just try this for a while. And that was back in 1979, and the rest, as they say, is history. Although I was able to finish my degree, and thankfully I got to teach labor history at San Jose City College for about 15 years, which was outstanding.
15 years?
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
So one more thing you've done. So tell me a little bit about your union. It used to be called the Retail Clerks. It's evolved.
It has evolved. The Retail Clerks merged with the Amalgamated Meat Cutters Union back in 1980, just a year after I started working for the union. And we're now the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, which is a big amalgamated union, represents primarily retail workers and retail food workers, but also meat cutters, meat packers, agricultural folks, a lot of other processing employees, a little bit of healthcare, a lot of different industries. And maybe most interestingly, particularly for our local union, we've been unionizing medical cannabis employees. So we have a wide range of folks that we represent.
Well, that sounds like a very up-to-date and modern approach to service.
Well, it really is, and that's certainly an industry that's growing. And there's a lot of issues around state laws versus federal laws and all of that. More and more, at least the medical side of cannabis is being accepted. And, maybe it's a little controversial that we've been organizing those workers, but, we don't make judgments on the type of work that people do. Our job is to represent workers.
Right.
And that's why we're in it.
Well, and I know the state is trying to look for ways to integrate what may be the future based on what other states have done in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a political component to it. We hear there may be another initiative in 2016 for full legalization, but in the meantime, our members are focused in the medicinal industry, and they're pretty happy to be union members.
But most of your members work in some of the larger grocery chains.
Absolutely. For Local 5, the majority of our members work in grocery stores, the big three chains being Safeway, Save Mart Lucky, and Raley's Nob Hill. That's always been the base of membership. That's where I came from. I worked at Lucky Stores as I was going through college back in the 70s. I always like to tell our members, if I go to a new member orientation or whatever, say, I know you're just starting out, you're a bagger, you're a courtesy clerk, but that's how I started. And now I'm the president of, Local 5, so anything can happen.
Anybody can be president.
Absolutely. It's a democratic organization, so if people are interested and involved, eventually they can work their way through.
So that's an interesting point. You are an elected president. How does the union conduct those kinds of elections? People decide they want to run and step up, or?
Yeah, it's prescribed by law, by the Landrum-Griffin Act. So every 3 years, local unions have to have an election, and any member in good standing can run for any office, and we go through the process and do the election. International unions have to have elections as well every 5 years.
So that's a point that may be lost on the public, is the fact that they are very democratic, and you get together and have membership meetings and people vote on things, positions you may take, or vote on contracts.
Yeah, I mean, the members run the organization, absolutely. There's we have bylaws that kind of lay out what the process is and what members' rights are and what union officers' responsibilities are. And, some unions are more, member-driven than others. I think one of the things I'm very proud of at Local 5 is we have really increased the sort of level of member involvement. We get a lot of our members released from work for a period of time to work on organizing campaigns or political campaigns, and then go back into the stores. We have a very robust steward program. So I think that's the piece I'm most proud of at Local 5.
Now, what is a steward? What does a steward do?
Right. So, we have full-time paid staff that are called union representatives, and they have a territory of stores or work sites, and they go and enforce the contract and deal with grievances. But we also have union leaders on the job that are kind of the on-the-job union representatives. So
the presence,
and they will deal with initial level grievances, or they'll kind of talk to people about what the different union issues are, try to get turnout for rallies or political events or whatever we do.
So I know that our economy is not as robust as we'd like to see, and that probably has an impact on the grocery business. What are the challenges that you as a union leader or your members face as you try to exist in the world?
The dynamic, Steve, has really changed from when I first started back in 1979 working for the union. Then grocery stores in this area were about 95% unionized. And so we set the standard for wages and benefits and working conditions and pensions, and all the grocery stores lived up to it. It's become increasingly difficult in recent years because there's this huge race to the bottom in retail driven by Walmart and other large companies, but primarily Walmart, that has just ratcheted down wages, benefits, and working conditions. And it became a problem for us when Walmart decided to get into the grocery business. And they do that and really, in Walmart's case, they will sell groceries at almost no profit or even a loss to bring people into the stores to buy the more profitable items, bicycle tires and toys and so on. And so what happens is the playing field has become less and less level. So whereas our members, their benefit package alone is about $10 an hour, and then their wage. So on the average, our members probably fully loaded with benefits and wages, make maybe $25 an hour. Whereas at Walmart, it's probably closer to $12 an hour. So they can afford to sell the groceries cheaper. It just creates this sort of terrible dynamic. And so we have to work very hard, as we have, trying to limit the expansion of Walmart, but more importantly, try to demand that they raise their conditions, to a level where people can earn a living working at that store. So the playing field becomes level again.
Well, my understanding is they have substandard, if any, medical benefits, and so often people have to take public subsidies, Walmart workers and others in some of these industries.
Yeah, in fact, Walmart, the largest employer in the world, they do trainings with their employees on how to access publicly provided benefits, because they have shirked their responsibility to provide those benefits. And currently under the when the Affordable Care Act is fully implemented, employers that don't give benefits to their workers are going to have to pay a penalty if they throw them out onto the exchange, except if they are working part-time. And so we're already seeing Walmart reduce everybody down to part-time so they can not only avoid the obligation to provide benefits, but to avoid the penalty.
Well, I think people have a sort of a creeping sense that Walmart doesn't live up to the community standards that I'd say you guys set, but I think it's helpful to spell it out explicitly. Do you guys have a public education campaign about that?
Yeah, there's really two sort of campaigns that are going on around Walmart. One is just sort of the ongoing campaign about what their working conditions are, their terrible and very well-known track record of how they treat workers. But also there's this rising campaign called Our Walmart, where Walmart associates are actually, they've formed their own organization. It's like a union. It's supported by the UFCW, but it's not a UFCW organization. It's driven by Walmart workers. In fact, some of them have been on strike. And some of them that went on strike have been illegally fired, and they've been kind of going around the country talking to people about the Walmart way and why they need to change. So, it's very difficult in any environment for workers to stand up to the boss. Even in a union environment, sometimes it's tough to get our members to really take a stand. But think about these folks at Walmart, how brave they are, that they stood up to their company, went out on strike, for a short period of time, and then went back to try to prove this point that they want to make Walmart better, not only for workers, but for everybody. Because, this stuff all filters through the system. So if you're paying your employees a standard of living that they can afford to buy things and, support the economy, it all sort of rotates through.
Very thought-provoking. So you have done other things. You've taught labor history in the community college. What was your calling there? I guess just becoming a history professor was your expectation. So.
Well, yeah. So I had that opportunity back whenever it was. It was a long time ago that I did it, but I had my degree in history, and the opportunity came up. So history degree, union guy. It just sort of made sense that I would teach labor history. And really enjoyed it, and the folks that were in the class I think enjoyed it as well, because it wasn't just a lecture type deal. We did a lot of different role playing, and we used to do oral histories where folks would go and interview members of the family that had been through labor strife and all of that. So it's a lot of fun, and I had to stop doing that when I got elected to the Board of Trustees of San Jose Evergreen Community College District, because you can't work for the district and be on the board. Right. So, and I did that for 12 years. Yeah. At the time was able to help preserve the program, because there's, the time I was on the college board, we had budget issues like all community colleges did.
And we're going to talk about those. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, lots more to discuss with Ron Lind.
Hello, my name is Margaret Abe Koga, and I'm a council member with the City of Mountain View. I'm sitting here today at KMBT in the studio. We just finished taping a segment of Democratic TV, and I wanted to talk with you about how you can get involved with the Democratic Party. When I was looking for a way to make a difference right after college, the Democratic Party was where I went to. And from there, I got involved with different groups, and actually ended up starting a club myself called the Silicon Valley Asian Pacific American Democratic Club. And we've worked hard to try to get more people involved in the party, in the political process, helping to get good people elected to local government and in other political offices. And so it's a great place to go to if you're looking to get involved. So please call us if you want to help out in any way at 408-445-9500. or visit our website at www.sccdp.org. Thank you.
Welcome back to Democratic Television and our guest, Ron Lind. Ron, when we took a break, you mentioned that you ran for and won a seat on the San Jose Evergreen Community College District Board. What made you want to run for that, given all the other activities in your life?
Yeah, well, this was about, I guess, 14 years ago now, 13 or 14 years that I was first elected. When community colleges are really for a lot of working class folks the college of necessity. If for whatever reasons they can't get to a four-year university or can't afford the cost, we have this great community college system in California. So it's just so important to my members and other union members and other workers. I just felt compelled to play a role in that on the college board, and I was able to do it for 3 terms.
Wow. So you went through all the budget strife and other kinds of issues, leadership issues, and
we went through a lot at the district while I was there, and I was happy to sort of lead a lot of that because I was board president a couple of times during my tenure. But yeah, we had the huge budget problems that the entire state went through a few years ago, and so you have to deal with priorities, trying to figure out where to put limited resources. And so I and others had a voice to make sure those resources were directed in ways that not only help students, but recognize the contribution of our staff members as well. I think we were, at the end of the day, we were able to kind of sort through it and work it out pretty well.
Do you think there's a greater appreciation amongst the California legislature and maybe the public in terms of the importance of the community colleges as exemplified by coming up with funding streams that are going to make you more sustainable?
Yeah, there's a huge commitment, I think, right now in the legislature and the governor's office, and there has been for quite some time. People really recognize the value of the community college system, and nationally as well. I mean, there's a great deal of support from the president and others in Congress around the value of community colleges. So I think we're really in a good place. I mean, certainly not to dismiss how valuable our four-year institutions are, but there's a specific role for community colleges, and I think not only for traditional education, but for job training. It's just a great forum for that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you mentioned your family. You have a wife and 2 daughters, and they all went through San Jose State. How are they doing now?
Yeah, well, my wife's a teacher at Milpitas High School, has been for many, many years. And, my oldest daughter, Julie, wound up in the labor movement. She worked for a legislator for quite a while. She worked for Ellen Corbett and then went on, and now she's the political director for the San Mateo Labor Council.
Oh, okay.
In fact, she's busy right now. They're doing precinct walking for some candidates. They have an off-year election there.
Yeah.
So they're out supporting good Democratic candidates in San Mateo County. In fact, she's a little upset because they're having a little hard time getting volunteers to show up, because we've been having, there's a lot going on, a lot of elections. We're getting a little bit worn out, but she'll figure her way out there. So she's been there for several years. And then my younger daughter, Sarah, is in the court system in San Mateo County.
Oh.
It's kind of funny. She started out as a court clerk, and within 2 months, she was the shop steward, and then she was on the bargaining committee, and then, as often happens, they find good union leaders and promote them into management. But she's still obviously very pro-union and talks to me a lot about it. But now she's sort of on the other side, on the management side. It's kind of funny.
I know there's an expression about the apple not falling far from the tree, exemplified, of course, by your 2 daughters, and sounds like your wife, Jennifer's out there in a lot of leadership stuff.
Yeah, we're very involved in our community. We live in Milpitas, and Jennifer's on a lot of different boards and commissions, and I do volunteer work. Because so much of the work I do is focused on the union movement, or the Democratic Party, or the different organizations I'm involved with. I really like sometimes to find things to do that have nothing to do with any of that, but just sort of help people. I like to do a lot of work with at-risk youth, with food pantry and that sort of thing. It's just
good stuff.
Yeah, I like doing.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
So speaking of something else, you are on the Public Employee Retirement System Board in California. Huge system. Describe what CalPERS does. Why don't you tell us how you got on the board, what it does, and what you're responsible for?
Okay, well, that's a lot. It is a big system. CalPERS is the largest retirement system in the United States. We have about $280 billion in assets, cover about 1.6 million employees and retirees and families for pension and benefits. Board members, some board members are elected. In fact, the majority of them. Others are ex officios, the treasurer and the controller. And then a few, like me, are appointed. So I was appointed by the Senate Pro Tem and the Assembly Speaker to that position. And it's a long, difficult process. It's very, there's a lot of responsibility. So they try to find, people that can do the job, obviously. I think, given the fact that I've been a long time chair of our UFCW union pension plan. I
Oh.
have some of the background and knowledge, so that certainly helped. I used to think that was a big plan with $3 billion, compared to 280 billion, but still, some involvement there. Now, why did I want to do this and agree to do it? Not only some people thought I'd be good at it, but, the way that you invest $280 billion can have a huge impact on society. We can, as long as we do it prudently, and we certainly do that, but we can invest it in ways that build the economy, create good jobs. I talked earlier about, things filtering their way through the system. And we can rise people up. That sort of drives the whole process. And so there's great opportunities at CalPERS. And, we're kind of known for being, pretty activist investors.
You take a look at the boards of directors and make suggestions to some of the companies you invest in.
Oh, we absolutely do. In fact, CalPERS has what we call a focus list, where we pick particular companies that we think we can help improve. So we have investments in those companies, and then we, kind of help them with issues around how boards of directors are elected and if they're staggered, and some of the other, policies that we have. And we've got a pretty good track record of showing that that kind of engagement improves the profitability of companies and therefore the return on our investment.
So, you're a capitalist at heart.
I hate the C word, Steve, but there's nothing wrong with capitalism as long as it's used to sort of drive benefits and conditions and standard of living for the working class. And I think we can do that at CalPERS, and a lot of us are committed to doing it.
Well, that's an interesting point, because you are a union leader, and people think of union leaders as fighting the employer, but you actually have a stake in that system of seeing the employer be successful as well.
Well, sure. In my union role, we certainly get into fights with our employers and sometimes strikes. But we also, have to make sure that our employers are healthy and can thrive and continue to pay the wages and benefits to our members. And while it's difficult, we have to realize this unlevel playing field that I talked about, led by, Walmart and others. So we have to be realistic. And while we're not, I wouldn't want to call it partners with our employers, but certainly we try to work with them to assure their survival, because, we've lost too many members, companies going out of business. So we have to, the industry is very competitive, the retail industry, so we have to be cognizant of that.
So, so many things to talk about, so little time. You are in charge of people's retirement potential, and if you do well, people can feel secure, if not insecure. Big movement now on pensions for both private and public sector workers. Chuck Reed, the mayor of San Jose, seems to want to alter in midstream the pensions of public workers. I don't imagine you have any thoughts about that.
I could talk about this for the next hour or so. We have to change the dynamic in this country around the whole pension discussion, Steve. And instead of people pointing at folks that have pensions and saying that they're too lucrative or they need to be cut back, we need to drive the discussion about how do we get pensions for people that don't have them. That's really what it's about and what we should be talking about. Government employees were hired, and when they were hired, they made the decision to take that job based on what the working conditions were and what the health benefit package, retirement package was at the time. To all of a sudden change the rules of the game when they've already been hired and working for 10 or 20 years, that's just not right. We should find other ways to again, rise people up that don't have pensions. We've got to get past this whole pension envy thing.
Well, and I see you saying that as a union leader, but is that a fiscally prudent thing to say as a pension manager?
Well, I think it is, Steve, because we as trustees work very hard to deal with funding status. And right now, CalPERS is underfunded, like most pension systems are, because of the crash in 2008. But we're doing a lot of work around that. We're looking at things like risk and how investments happen and what the funding stream is that comes into the system, and we're working our way out of the funding difficulties. We can do it. Even had we not been through the market crash, we're dealing with this whole issue around mortality. People are living longer and therefore collecting benefits longer. We're figuring out how to deal with that. So, as a CalPERS trustee, and even as a system, CalPERS, while we can't advocate for or against particular initiatives and all that, that's not our role, but we're very strong advocates for defined benefit pension plans, which is what government employees have, what most union employees have. In other words, the benefit is defined, and you work on how the funding stream is going to fund that benefit. Rather than this push for defined contribution pension systems like, 401k type. Because a lot of those folks, man, when the market crash hit and they thought they were going to retire, their life changed because the pot of money they thought they had was much, much smaller.
So it sounds like you have some important goals, and I'm hoping that what you're talking about is something that exists in a lot of the large systems that workers are depending on for the rest of their lives.
Well, we are, and look, we have done pension reform in California. I mean, it passed. PEPRA passed a couple of years ago, which reforms the pension, and but it changed it for new employees, going forward. But there was a lot of input and involvement of stakeholders there. It's the same thing in the city of San Jose. We've had this huge, fight over pensions, led by the mayor primarily and some others on the city council, directed at the pension system in San Jose. But the mayor has not been very collaborative as far as I can tell, because, look, as union leaders who represent workers that have pensions in maybe a difficult system, we are willing to talk and discuss and find ways. Nobody's just putting up a wall and say, we're not going to change anything. But if you don't bring the stakeholders into the process and you just try to enforce change at the ballot box rather than in negotiations and discussions, that's just not the right way to do it.
Ron, we have about 30 seconds left. Do you have a website if someone wants to learn more about any of this? I'm sure there's a bunch, but...
Well, I'll just give my union website,
Okay.
which is www.ufcw5.org. We have a lot of information there, and obviously you can go to the CalPERS website or other and search around.
Great. Well, Ron, you're a busy guy. Thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thanks for watching Democratic Television. Give us a call at 408-445-9500 or visit our website, www.sccdp.org. Help make a difference, and we'll see you on the campaign trail.